Here we will see middleware in request pipeline in ASP.NET. Middleware are software components that are assembled into an application pipeline to handle requests and responses. Each component chooses whether to pass the request on to the next component in the pipeline and can perform certain actions before and after the next component is invoked in the pipeline. Request delegates are used to build the request pipeline. The request delegates handles each HTTP request. Each piece of middleware in ASP.NET Core is an object, and each piece has a very specific, focused and limited role. So to run an application appropriately, we need many pieces of middleware. The individual components that makes up the pipeline is called middleware and is executed on every request in the ASP.NET Core application. ASP.NET Core request pipeline is a bidirectional sequence of modular components that processes every incoming HTTP request and outgoing response. Each middleware component in the pipeline has a specific responsibility such as authentication, logging and routing. So here client gives the request. This HTTP request is passed to the server. Then through .NET CLR it is passed to the Castriel, which executes the main entry point, that is main method, and the configure method, and passes this request to the middlewares, which executes the app code and returns the HTTP response to the client. There are different types of middleware in ASP.NET Core: terminal middleware, non-terminal middleware, and custom middleware. First we see terminal middleware. The terminal middleware is responsible for sending the response back to the client. It is the final middleware component in the pipeline, which can be used to modify the outgoing response before it is sent back to the client. Some examples of terminal middleware includes static file middleware, which is used to serve static files such as CSS, JavaScript and images. Then file server middleware. This is used to serve files for a specific directory. And MVC middleware, which is used to handle requests for MVC endpoints. Then non-terminal middleware. Non-terminal middleware is any middleware component that is not the final component in the pipeline. These can be used to modify incoming requests and outgoing responses. Some examples of non-terminal middlewares includes authentication middleware, which is used to authenticate the user; authorization middleware, which is used to authorize users to access certain resources; response compression middleware, which is used to compress the response before it is sent back to the client; then request logging middleware, which is used to log requests; and routing middleware, which is used to route requests to the appropriate endpoint; and custom middleware. In addition to the built-in middleware components that are available in .NET Core, you can also create your own custom middleware components, which allows you to add functionality to your application that is specific to your needs. To create custom middleware, you need to create a class that implements iMiddleware interface. The iMiddleware interface has a single method called iInvokeAsynchronous, that is called when the middleware component is invoked. Different uses of middlewares are: middleware can be a powerful tool, but it should be used sparingly. Adding too much middleware to the pipeline can also slow down your application and make it difficult to maintain. The order in which middleware components are added to the pipeline is important. Make sure that you add a middleware component in the correct order so that they are executed in desired sequence. When you have a middleware component that is final component in the pipeline, use terminal middleware, which ensures that the response is sent back to the client and that no further middleware components are executed. Before deploying your application, make sure that you test your middleware components thoroughly. This will help you to identify any issues or performance problems. Recommended middleware order is: first, exception handling. This middleware must be first to catch any errors that occurs in subsequent middleware or the final endpoint. Then HSTS. This enforces HTTPS in production. Then HTTPS redirection. It redirects HTTP request to HTTPS. Then static files. Serves file like images or CSS and short circuit the rest of the pipeline for these requests. Then routing. Matches the incoming request URL to a specific endpoint. Then CORS. It must be placed after routing but before the authentication to handle pre-flight request correctly. Then authentication. Verifies the identity of the user. Then authorization. It checks if the authenticated user has permission to access the resources. Then custom middleware. Typically placed after authorization and before endpoint execution. And endpoint, which is the final stage where the actual application logic is executed.